The content in this podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only. Nothing we say should be taken as individualized advice. If anything you hear brings up concerns for you, we strongly encourage you to speak with your GP, psychologist, or another qualified health professional.
We would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional owners of the unceded lands of the Kulin Nation on which this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their rich history and honour the ongoing connection to land, waters, culture and community.
Welcome to This Might Help, a podcast bridging the gap between psychology research and your everyday life. We're your hosts. I'm Dr. Kira Hart.
And I'm Dr. Lauren Rossetti. Today we are jumping into goal setting as our topic, which we think is pretty timely coming up to another year ahead.
The end of 2025. What better time to take stock and reflect on our goals and think about goal setting for 2026.
Yes, exactly. So we will be talking about how to actually set goals, what gets in the way of making goals stick normally, because I don't know about you, but some of the goals I set at the beginning of this year have not come to fruition. So how to make them or why they don't stick, and then we'll actually talk about how we can make our goals more likely to stick in 2026.
Exactly, according to psychology research as always.
Yes.
But before we get into today's episode, let's chat about our wellbeing wins and wobbles of the week.
Yeah.
It's been a few weeks since we recorded our last episode. We have a bit to catch up on with each other's lives.
We're back.
What's been your wellbeing win and wobble of the past month?
I am going to have wellbeing wins and wobbles related to my trip overseas.
Yes, tell us about it.
Which is also kind of why we had a little break. My wellbeing win is eating a croissant in Paris.
Yeah.
There was just something about first time in Paris, having a croissant, eating it like stepped out of the bakery on the side of the road, looking at all the beautiful architecture and feeling very Parisian and having my little croissant.
That's so gorgeous.
So good.
That.
My wellbeing wobble is that I was at the Louvre. That's not the wobble, obviously. That was a win. But my wobble part of this experience was that my phone was very quickly dying.
Oh no.
So did you think I was going to say my phone was stolen?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Luckily I held on to my phone the whole time. Thank God. But I was in the Louvre. My phone was getting very low on the battery. And there is this part in the Louvre called the studio, which is like a bit where you can go and draw. There's like canvases and stuff, and you can they must run like creative classes and things in there. So they have all of these USB plugs and stuff in that section. Yeah. And I had a phone cord in my handbag. Yeah. Not like the bit to plug it into the wall, but just the USB. Yeah. Yeah. USB to phone. So I was like, great, I'm going to go from one section to this place, plug my phone in, charge it. Yeah. I leave the one part of the Louvre and realize that to get back into the other part of the Louvre, I needed to go through like kind of the gate again. So I needed to kind of like go through the security like point. Yeah. Within that short walk, probably like 50 meters or something, my phone died. No. And so she wouldn't let me in. I was like, I've been in here all day. I've been seeing everything. Yes. And I like wanted to go back in, obviously, to charge my phone. And she just looked at me and shook her head. She was like, no, fair enough. They've recently had some theft. Yeah. So they've probably got to keep their security measures.
This chick wants to steal some jewelry.
Yeah. And so I couldn't get back in, and luckily I'm so proud of myself because if anyone who knows me knows I am horrible with directions. I can't remember which way I came out of anywhere. Like I'll just go the opposite direction. Yeah. However, somehow with the dead phone, I managed to walk back to my hotel in Paris from the Louvre.
That is really impressive.
Yeah.
Because the neighborhoods around Paris aren't in a gridlock or they're not in a grid. Sorry, it's a bit.
Yeah, it's all over the shop.
Yeah.
So I remembered like some key landmarks,
Yeah.
and I found my way back, went to my hotel, charged my phone. It was all good. And it was a stressful period of time, but
Yeah. No, that is stressful. I feel like traveling exacerbates those like
Oh, yeah.
stressful emotions
Yeah.
as well when you're like caught out without your phone charged, etc.
Yeah. And just on my own. So, but yeah, that's me. How about you?
My well-being, actually also is about my phone.
Yeah.
So the other day I was at my house doing some cleaning and I could not find my phone for the life of me. And I was like, I just had it 10 minutes ago. What have I done with this phone? I was doing fine, my phone, playing the noise, couldn't find it anywhere. And then I was thinking like, okay, where have I been? I had taken out the rubbish and I had a bunch of recycling. And I was like, put the bin on the street. And I was like, I don't think, like, why, like, where is my phone? Anyway, went down to the bin, had to go through the bin, and my phone was down the bottom of the recycling bin. Thankfully, it was recycling and not the trash bin.
Yeah.
But I was just like hands deep in a bin on the side of the road looking for my phone. Thankfully,
Lucky it didn't get taken out.
I know.
To the rubbish bag.
I know. So that was a stressful 10 minutes for me. And then my well-being win is that besides from the whole rubbish situation, my household has been very like peaceful and tranquil and calm
Love that.
the past like week or two, which I've really enjoyed.
That's what you need during the silly season. You need a calm house.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Well, we've got a big episode today. I feel like we've got lots to talk about.
We have so much to talk about. Let's try to get through it.
Yeah. And often these types of things we chat about in the new year, right? Like we talk about, it's the 1st of January. Everyone thinks about New Year's resolutions and goals and like what they're going to do for the year. I like to sometimes think about these things before the end of the year to kind of get myself in the swing of things before January 1st, rather than this arbitrary date of like, it's the new year. And often people are celebrating and doing all of those things. It's really hard to start those.
You're out partying with your friends. It's a hard time to journal your goals.
Yes. So I like to think about it in the end of a year, but you can listen to this episode whenever you like. Yeah. It'd be a good refresh in the middle of next year as well. So we're going to talk about, firstly, what does effective goal setting look like? What does that actually involve? And are you a big goal setter, Kira?
I have been known to like sit down towards the end of December and create sometimes goals, but the past few years I've done like a word of the year. So I've thought about a key word that I want to embody the year. For instance, my word of the year this year I think was friendship. So that was kind of like the value that directed my decisions and lifestyle and my year this year. So that's what I tend to do.
I love that. That's a beautiful thing to do.
What about yourself?
I often set goals.
Yeah.
I often set unrealistic goals. And so
don't we all?
Yeah. And so today will be helpful in everything. Everything today is helpful for me personally as well. I do often kind of set myself up in a way of like all of these grand plans at the beginning of the year, which can be unachievable or like unrealistic is the word I'm looking for. And then that's tricky. Yeah. So we're not going to do that in 2026.
Okay, so let's chat about effective goal setting.
Yeah.
Lots of people set outcome-based goals. And when I say outcome-based goals, I mean, as it sounds like, goals based on specific outcomes. For example, the outcome goal might be finding a partner or getting promoted at work. And whilst these goals might be like great to have that you're working towards that thing. However, when the focus is on the outcome, we don't actually have any control on that outcome. For example, we can't control if we get into a relationship or get promoted at work. That's up to our bosses or our Hinge matches. That's not something you can entirely control yourself.
Like there's big elements of it that you don't have control over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's out of your hands. So there's some difficulties associated with setting outcome goals.
When we think about the kind of specific things we can do around the behavior, that can help with, I guess, shifting or focusing on what can we control. So how can we set up goals where they line up with what we can do that makes us work towards those kind of big life things that you might want? For example, finding a partner, getting a promotion. So rather than, I guess, saying like, if get promoted was the outcome kind of goal you'd set in the past, maybe it's shifting that towards something like completing one professional development activity every quarter of the year. Or if it's around finding a partner, it might be like the goal might shift to behaviors you can control, like I'm going to go to 2 social events every month. Or something like that, where you'll have the opportunity to meet new people. So those are behaviors that you have control over, and you can actively work towards. Whereas that outcome of finding a partner, like you said, there's so much of that you don't have control over.
Exactly. So when it comes to effective goal setting, we want to think about our behaviors more so than the outcome of the goal.
Yeah.
Now, SMART goals are pretty well known when we kind of talk about goal setting. SMART goals often gets thrown around.
Might have had that chatted to you about at uni, in school,
at work, etc.
Yeah.
So SMART goals stands for S, specific, M, measurable, A, achievable, R, relevant, so making your goals connected to like a bigger picture or a life value you have, making it relevant to you. And T, time bound. So being specific in kind of the time frame in which you want to achieve the goal. Maybe it's this month, or by the end of 2026, I want to have achieved X.
For example, one of the goals that I have been thinking about is going to Pilates regularly. We've talked about this. Do I ever not talk about Pilates? I don't know. So one of the, I guess, goals or the direction that I want to take that in is going consistently to Pilates.
Yes.
Right.
You have a membership, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Get
my money's worth. So if that's kind of a vague goal. I want to go to Pilates consistently, right? If we were then to turn that into a SMART goal, it might be something like, I will attend Pilates classes 4 times per week for 12 weeks. And that has these elements. So when we think about specific, it's not just something like exercise more or, be active, right? It's about like going to Pilates. Like there's a specific action. It's measurable. So I'm aiming for like 4 classes a week. So that's, I can measure that. Like how many did I go to in the week? So then you have to think about, I guess for me, I've thought, okay, that's achievable for myself. I can make it. Like I know that I can make it to 4 classes within a week. That works. It's not like too ambitious for my general schedule. It's also not under like setting the goal, like once a week for me. It might be like, that's not, I want to set it a little bit higher.
You've a few hours spare in your week to commit to exercise.
Yes. And then it is relevant. So I guess if I think back to my broader values, one of those would be like, I guess, if we think about self-care and looking after myself, like one of those, that's a big value focus for me for 2026. And so I know that this exercise helps like fill my cup and like is a type of self-care for me. So that's connected to the relevance and values. And then time bound being that I've set that kind of SMART goal to be across a 12-week time frame. Yeah. So we've got like a time bound element to it.
Love that.
Another concept that is talked about when we think about goal setting, and that I remember learning about in my training as well, is around goal attainment scaling. That's what this thing is called.
Tell me about it.
But goal attainment scaling is about thinking of your goal and different levels of that goal. So rather than just having kind of the one outcome you want, you think about what would this goal look like if it, was better than expected, or you did kind of more than that goal, or what does it look like right now where you're at? What would it look like if you went backwards?
I like that. So different levels of the same goal.
Yeah. And so it's kind of on a scale of +2 to -2.
Okay.
0 right in the middle is that goal you want to achieve. So if we think about something like you're working up for an exam, or you're studying for something, or like uni next year, maybe your goal is that you want to have like 3 study sessions a week.
Yeah.
If that's the goal, that's 0. So that's kind of what you're aiming for. -1 is where you're at now. So that's baseline.
Yeah.
So maybe you do 1 study session a week at the moment. So -1 is, where you're at right now, 1 study session a week. -2 would be, what would it look like if you went backwards, or if it got worse than kind of what it is now? So that might be you've done no study sessions.
No study all week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
+1 is a bit better than expected. So that might be 4 study sessions a week.
Ooh.
+2 is even better than that as well. So that might be 5 study sessions
Very
a week.
studious.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So you can set up some scales. And that's just a way, I guess, to think about what the goal might look like in different levels. Like, what would happen if it went better than expected? Where am I at right now? And what would going backwards look like as a scale for goals?
That's a super handy way to think about goals. Another technique we want to speak about when it comes to helping us define and shape our goals is going back to our personal values.
Yeah.
So psychologists, we harp on a lot about values and acceptance and commitment therapy, etc., etc. But values are what drive our direction that we want to move in.
Yes.
So, for example, someone might hold the value of health or of friendship.
Yes.
And they're kind of like guiding lights to how we live our life. So when it comes to goals, these are really specific milestones that you can kind of like achieve or tick off. But it can be really helpful to draw on your values and to have them driving your goals.
Yes.
For example, if we consider health and fitness, having a goal of
like running 5 kilometers.
Having that being in line with your values of health and fitness is so important.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't value health and fitness, achieving that goal would be so much harder, because what's driving you?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So values, they can say like values are the compass. They're the compass of kind of your life, and goals are these little destinations along the way. With something like running 5 kilometers as an example for a goal, I was chatting to, some friends and people about goal setting, and loved this kind of concept of lots of people set the goal, and like lots of people in the new year will set a goal. I want to run 5Ks, right? But why do you want to do that? Like, why is it 5 kilometers? Why is that the goal? Why is that important to you?
Yes.
Does it align with your values? Like, are you setting the goal of wanting to run 5Ks because, that's you're going to go in for a fun run, and the fundraising thing is really important to you or meaningful to you? Is it, that you want to increase your endurance, and that's like really important to you, and that's why you're setting that goal? But think about like why this arbitrary kind of number of 5 kilometers is actually important to you. Like, why is that the goal? Goal that's being set?
Yeah.
And then wanting to, I guess the why is always so important, which we often link back to our values. Why, though, do goals not normally stick? Because they get abandoned so often, and that's just so common, and it happens so quickly.
100%.
Yeah.
I think I, as many listeners, can probably relate to this. Like, you set a goal, you have the intention of achieving something, and then a few days, weeks, months go on, and you just forget about that one.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah. And it's hard to persist. So yes.
We're going to chat about some reasons why goals don't stick according to the research.
Yes.
The first one being that the goal isn't actually yours.
And I think that links really well to literally what we just said about the values and like that 5 kilometer threshold one, for example.
Like, maybe you've seen everyone on social media doing a run and you think, okay, well, I have to do a run now. But it's
Yeah.
not actually something you value, or it's not actually something that's aligned with you and what you want and your bigger picture.
Yeah.
But there might be like social pressure
Yeah.
to do it. And
And,
that's why you sign up.
My friend said, she's like, if you hate running, why is that the goal, you know?
Yes.
And maybe there are elements of it where, you know, you want a challenge and there's other things.
You
and
want
then
the Insta pic. Yeah.
that is not a values-driven goal. But, you know, maybe there's things about like, that do make that the right goal for you.
Yeah.
But it's thinking about, is this goal actually yours? Does it align with the values? Are you doing it because it's important to you and because, you know, it's moving you towards, like we can say, it's moving you towards the person you want to be. Is it a goal that does that helps you align with your values? If it's just something you've seen and you think you need to do, like run a half marathon because you're between the age of like 25 and 35, then, you know, maybe that's, we can shift focus. Yeah.
Or you can hop on the bandwagon, either or, but I say this as someone who is part of run clubs and has hopped on the bandwagon.
You love running.
I do.
Yeah,
it does align with my values.
Yeah, it does. Whereas, you know, although, I've been on and off the running bandwagon, but maybe it's not sticking because it's not aligning with my values. The next reason, sorry, you go ahead.
I was just
going to cut you off.
Another reason why goals don't stick, and we spoke to this at the start of the episode, is when we have goals focused on outcomes that we don't have any control over.
Yeah.
For example, the goal of getting a promotion or finding a partner, when we don't have complete control of these situations.
Yeah. And it can be hard when those goals are very broad like that, or even if the goal was, you know, like to be healthy or to be, you know, like that. There's not specific ways you can see the progress in some of those things. So, you know, you might be making lots of amazing progress towards that outcome, for example, of getting a promotion or finding a partner. But if that's just the goal, it's really hard to track and see the progress, right?
Yes.
So you might be going to all these social events and putting yourself out there and making all these super meaningful, bits of progress that you should be proud of and like are motivating. But then if the outcome doesn't happen, then that can make it hard to kind of keep going.
Yes.
If it's just outcome based like that.
And we'll speak to this a little bit later on in the episode, but when we don't see results, sometimes motivation can decrease.
Yeah.
So that just kind of feeds into that like negative self-fulfilling prophecy where you're like, this is really difficult. This is too hard. I can't achieve this goal. I won't put myself out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Unrealistic timelines are another reason why goals don't stick. I'm laughing because this feels very relevant to me. Both, I guess, unrealistic timelines in how quickly you want the goal to be achieved. So, you know, there's all these concepts around a habit takes like 21 days to form, or like there's these theories around timelines. Things often take longer than we expect though, right?
Yes.
Like we all think, just imagining I set up goals at the beginning of this year about papers that I wanted written and finished. I laugh when the other day I opened the timeline I had made for one of these, or like for the number of papers I was going to write in a year. Oh my gosh, so unrealistic. I laugh at my January, February version of Lauren.
Yeah.
Because completely unrealistic timelines. It was never going to happen.
Ambitious but unrealistic.
Yeah, yes. Ambitious and definitely unrealistic. Things take longer than we expect. And when we set ourselves up with these timelines that are so short, so pressured, it just means that it can, like with the, when you focus on things you don't have control over, it's also really demotivating, or like, it's like can be disheartening when you set these super tight timelines and then you can't achieve them.
Yes.
Not the way we want to go.
No.
We want to set realistic timelines.
I've definitely been the same when I was doing my PhD. I was like, okay, my goal is to write this entire thesis chapter in a week.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just impossible.
Yes.
But you set these like really lofty goals within such a short time frame.
Yes.
That is just unrealistic.
Yeah. And they're not, I just think all of those concepts we spoke about in like the effective goal setting approach are so important, because I think they help you put things also into perspective. Like, what is a realistic timeline? And how do you work towards that? And it can also be setting way too many goals. Like, it might not just be that the timeline is unrealistic, but it also might be the quantity of goals and things is unrealistic.
Yes.
Saying that we'll do a million things, it's just all the things I do. I'm like, yes, I'm going to be able to reply to all of these emails, tick off all of these things, clean the house, blah, blah, blah. And it's all going to be done within, this one day.
Yeah.
Just not going to happen.
No,
we need to reframe.
Exactly. Another thing that gets us stuck in the way of achieving goals is when our goals are maybe too vague or too rigid.
Yeah.
For example, having a goal with no clear action steps, such as getting healthy. I know we've drawn on this example earlier, but when there's no clear pathway or smaller sub goals to achieve that, and when it's big and broad, or conversely, if it's super, super rigid.
Yeah. Like with the 5K example, right? Like, you set the goal, that's what you want to run, but maybe you start doing that and you realize this is not for you, and then the flexibility is so important. Maybe it's, I'm going to go on regular walks, and that's the goal. And like, we can shift our goals. We might set a goal and then discover, as you're working towards that thing, it's no longer aligning with your values. It's not going the way you like. It's not feeling relevant anymore. It's not feeling right. And then it's okay to shift that. But sometimes we can get really stuck in the way of thinking that this is the goal I set, and so it has to look the same. But maybe it doesn't have to look the same. Maybe there's a version of that goal. Again, if we're aligning with our values, like, what is another version of that thing that aligns with our values that could fit for us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another reason it's hard for us to kind of be consistent with our goals, or for goals to stick, is that relying on motivation and willpower alone can be really tricky.
Yes.
Like, sometimes we're just not going to feel that drive to do the thing, when the willpower will not be there.
Yeah.
There are lots of habit-based concepts and ideas and things that can make this easier. So I guess the concept is around, when we set up our system and environment better to support us to kind of do those steps that work towards a goal, it becomes easier. That kind of sounds really vague, but
I think a great example of it is, if you have the goal or intention of going for a run, laying out your runners in your room can help like remind you, but also like motivate you to go on that run in the morning when you wake up. Yeah.
You're like reducing some of the barriers that get in the way, because you might get home, you think, oh, I've got to like go pick out the things, I've got to do all the steps.
Yeah.
And that makes it harder. Whereas if you have those systems set up in place, it makes it easier to kind of bypass some of that motivation. These are all concepts that are talked about a lot in Atomic Habits by James Clear, and maybe we will do a whole episode on habit setting and this habit part, because I think there's so much in there we could talk about. We'll do that in the new year.
Yes.
One thing from that I like to help me bypass when my motivation is feeling really low, or help to kind of boost my motivation, is the concept of never miss twice.
Ooh.
So, for example, if my goal, which I have had, before, of journaling each night, or like writing down some like key reflections, or kind of doing the gratitude stuff.
Yeah.
If I want to do that every night, some nights I just won't get around to it. Some nights I'll miss it. Something will come up. But instead of missing once and then missing many days in a row, I'll try and remember to never miss twice. So if I didn't get around to it last night, then I'll really make sure I get around to it tonight, because I don't want to have those 2 nights in a row where I didn't get to do it.
Yes.
And sometimes, we don't need to, like, that doesn't work, or we need to be more flexible with ourselves. Like, for example, with exercise, there's sometimes where you're sick or things are
Yeah.
going on, and it's really important to actually look after yourself and take that break.
Miss it 3-4 days in a row.
Yeah. But for some of these regular habits where you really, you want them to kind of become a part of your
Yeah.
lifestyle or your daily routine, this like little thought about, never missing twice can help us to kind of keep the consistency going.
I like that saying, never miss it twice.
Yeah, never miss twice. Okay, we know that there are ways to set effective goals. We've talked about a lot of those. We know that these things can get in the way or make it harder for us to stick to our goals and keep them going beyond, the first few days of January. But how do we apply that? How do we then make our goals stick? Let's talk about some of those ways.
The first strategy is implementation intentions. We've spoken about if-then planning in previous episodes, but in short, this is where we plan for situations. For example, if this happens, then I will.
Yeah.
So for example, you might have the goal of writing a thesis. Amazing. Good on you for doing that. And then implementation intention would look like, if I get home from uni and I have a spare hour or so, then I will work on my thesis.
Yeah.
It can also be super helpful for planning for those obstacles.
Yes.
So, for example, you might walk to Pilates in the rain.
Yes.
Sorry, hopefully not in the rain, but you might walk to Pilates.
Yes.
And one day it might be raining and you're like, oh, I don't really want to go to Pilates.
Yeah.
But you can have the plan that if it is raining, then I will drive to Pilates. Then I will bring an umbrella to Pilates. And hopefully that kind of like backup plan gets you out of the door to Pilates.
Yes. We can also think about things like, when this happens, I will do this as well. So rather than thinking, I guess the if-then planning, really helpful for managing what we're going to do with our obstacles. We can also pair things together. So when I wake up, I will do 5 minutes of meditation, or when I get into bed, I will pull out my journal to do my, gratitude journaling, whatever it is. But setting up some of those, or like pairing things that you always know you're going to do or are already a part of your routine with the new action that you want to start or implement as well. One of the other strategies, so important, is breaking goals into smaller steps or smaller sub goals. Really breaking things down into those small little actions that work towards a big goal.
This is so important.
Yes.
I can't emphasize this enough.
Yes.
Often when we have those really big goals, it is overwhelming and it does feel really daunting.
Yes. It's hard then also to build up the motivation or kind of, take those steps to achieve the goal, because it's just too big.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's not setting ourselves up for success.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's hard to like track your progress when a goal is so big.
Yes. And we want to think about the small steps and things that we can do to get there. So breaking any big goals into smaller little sub goals, which, the SMART goal and those steps should also help with. But even thinking about, when we're driving our goals by our values, when we're thinking about that future point, every little step, there's the concept of, each small step I take is kind of a vote towards the person I want to be.
Yeah.
It's like working towards those values, and little tiny bits of improvement or working towards like little tiny steps every day, they really add up.
Yes.
And I think we forget about that all the time.
And it does also, when you achieve those like smaller goals, it builds momentum, it builds self-efficacy.
Yeah.
You can tick things off and you start to see your progress, which is really exciting and motivating when you're working towards a big task.
Yeah.
I know we've had a few questions recently about like finding motivation or finding kind of like the energy to approach a thesis or a big like academic assignment. And I think my biggest like hot tip would be breaking it into those smaller chunks, like working on a literature review and then working on the introduction section, the method section, rather than just saying, write a thesis.
Yeah.
Because that is really daunting and overwhelming.
And even in those sections you said, they can be broken down into so many smaller parts as well. And yeah, also starting small is really helpful when we do break things down as well.
Yeah.
So it might be that, we're going to just have a go at starting off with walking around the block, or it's going to be, starting something, going for 2 minutes, doing 5 minutes, just starting, because that can often be the hardest part.
Yes.
And when we set those really small, like little small steps, and we work through those, that then sometimes is enough to like get us rolling,
Yes.
I used to do, and maybe it was like during the lockdown times with, exercise and everything was really tricky. And I would even just roll out the yoga mat and start with, okay, all I'm going to commit to is doing 5 minutes. At the end of the 5 minutes, if I still feel like going, I'll finish the yoga class that I'm doing. If I'm really still not feeling it, well, that's fine. I only aimed for 5 minutes. That was, that was the small little increment that I wanted to do. So then that's fine. If I don't feel up to it, I'll stop at 5 minutes. But starting with those really tiny bits where you feel like, oh, that's achievable. I really can get that started and do that.
Yes.
Often you'll find, and often I did find, well, I started the 5 minutes and then I was feeling good and I was into the, into the momentum, and I'd finished the yoga class. And
Love that.
start small.
It's far less daunting when you start small.
Yes. There's also the approach of making the goal public and kind of drawing on that accountability.
Yes, this is such a interesting one, and one that I think really helps me personally.
Yes.
So there's research to say you're more likely to achieve your goals when it's shared. So when you share it with a family member, tell a friend, tell a colleague, hey, this is something I'm working towards. It can be really great to have those people check in on you as well, and have like an accountability partner. So someone who kind of says, hey, like, how's that project going that you're working on? Or how's your running going? Are you still kind of like training for that 5K run? That can be really helpful to kind of have that little bit of like social pressure.
Yeah.
But it does motivate you when you kind of, I don't know, want to impress your family and friends and be like, oh yeah, like I did a run last night. It went really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, sharing your goals can be really helpful.
Yeah. And then that builds a bit of a community and a support system for you as well, for when, there is an obstacle that you don't know how to manage. Well, you've got these people that know about the goal. They can help as well. And then a nice little thing at the end when you achieve that goal, or it does happen, or you making those steps of progress, you have other people that can celebrate and also, enjoy that goal with you, which is what we want. That would be lovely. Regular check-ins and thinking about, is the goal still the right goal? And how are we going is also so important. So one of the things I have loved to attempt to do with my goals, going to be using all of the other strategies to make it stick this time, is thinking about regular check-ins of your goals throughout the year. So sometimes I guess if we're heading into 2026, so we're thinking about kind of that whole year period, you might set these goals and your plan is to have them, across the whole year, but having regular check-in times to like look back on your progress, see how things are going, see if you need a reframe any of those goals is so helpful. And it might be that it looks like you have different, I guess, levels of check-in. So for example, you might have these kind of big quarterly check-ins of your goals. So you might do it every 3 months across the year. That might be bigger, like a bigger look at what has the last 3 months looked like, what progress has been made towards those goals. Are the goals right for me? Do I need to shift them?
Yeah.
Then there can be other more regular check-ins. So you might do ones every month that's like a look back on that month. How's the goals going? How's the progress going? And then even shorter ones that might be like weekly check-ins. So at the end of a week, I kind of book in my calendar on it might be a Friday night, or it might be a Sunday night, or whenever it is. And that's like a way to look back at how those goals have progressed in the week.
Yes.
And then thinking about those ACT principles and our values, it might be that we say, okay, what steps did I take to work towards those values or goals this week? What were the barriers or obstacles, and how can I shift that for next week?
Yes.
Yeah, because sometimes we don't look back.
No.
And then we don't look at that progress regularly. And now a month has gone by and we're not kind of making the progress that we wanted to, or those small steps each day. We kind of lose sight of how kind of important those are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing I do in the car on the way home from work is I ask myself 2 questions. One, what went well today? And second, what could have gone better today, or what could I improve upon? And that's just like a really quick check-in I do with myself about like, okay, what goals am I meeting, or what do I kind of need to do to kind of like, what obstacles got in the way of my goals, or what do I need to like learn and improve on to, you know, have a better outcome the next day.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm going to start doing that on my walk home. Yeah. It's also not a failure to adjust a goal.
Oh, no.
And so in these reflections, and, you know, especially when we're looking at those big picture things, it's, you know, important to give yourself the permission and the flexibility to say, okay, this isn't working, or this isn't what I want anymore. This doesn't align with my values. I'm going to shift or adjust that goal. Like what we were talking about before, maybe the initial goal was to run, and then you realize, okay, this is not for you. Like this is not the thing that you want to be doing. And so what is an adjusted goal that still aligns with your values? So if the value is, you know, health, and it's kind of, or self-care, and that's what you're kind of working towards, well, then what's another version of the, you know, maybe the goal was around running that worked towards that value? Well, there's a whole range of other things that still work towards health, or still work towards, you know, self-care.
Yes.
And we can adjust.
Maybe it looks like going to a yoga class, or going for a walk with friends, or swimming, or so many options.
Yes, any of the things. Yeah. We've got 2026 around the corner.
Yes.
We're thinking about next year and our goals. We now know all about lots of the things that we're going to do to set effective goals and try and help us make them stick. Here is like a kind of quick rundown of where to go from here. What would we, you know, do when now we're sitting down, we're trying to plan out those goals for next year? Start with values. We're going to always come back to that. But think about your values. Go back and listen to our values episode if you want to know what your values are and how to figure them out. So start with those values, then turn those values into those specific kind of behavior-based goals. Thinking about SMART goals, thinking about that goal attainment scaling as well, like setting out those really specific goals that give you direction, and thinking about how that might look at different levels. Like, what does it look like if things stay the same? What does it look like if they get better? What would it look like if things went backwards a little bit? Like working out all of those things. Yeah. Then the steps of how you get there. What are those like specific little steps we can take every day that work towards that goal and align us with our values? Create those if-then plans. Think about the obstacles, you know, what could come up and how will we work around it? Start very small with the little steps.
Yes.
And even sometimes we think we're starting small and we're probably not starting small enough. Yeah. So, you know, pare it way back so that you set yourself up for success. Think about your environment. Is your environment and the, you know, those kind of systems of your life set up in a way that really supports you to achieve those goals? Or are there, you know, these unintentional kind of barriers in your environment that are making it harder to achieve those goals? So things like, you know, setting out your activewear and clothes the night before, if we're thinking about things like exercise. So think about your environment. Schedule check-ins early. So like think now about when you're going to check in about your goals in the next year. Put it in your calendar.
Yeah.
Lock it in, block out the time so that you can reflect on those goals and the progress. And think about the way that you will do those check-ins. So will it be like you're going to write it down? You're going to have a conversation with someone? Like what does that check-in look like as well? and tell someone. Get
friend.
accountable. Tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a colleague. Just, set up a way for you to share and also have someone to talk to about the goal. And that's, a few little 10 steps to setting up your goals for 2026.
That brings us to the end of the content for today's episode.
Yes.
We are reflecting on our own goals for 2026 in this podcast, so we can't wait to share the news of what we're planning for next year.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening and supporting the podcast. We really, really appreciate it, and we're just getting started finding our feet, so we really appreciate any support we're having.
Yes.
You can find us, as always, on social media at This Might Help Pod on
podcast.
on
Kira's goal for 2026 is to remember the handles of this podcast for the next year. I'm going to set you that goal.
I think that's achievable.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
You can do it when you follow our goal setting episode recommendations and research. Yes, you can find us at This Might Help Podcast. Yeah, on Instagram and TikTok, and the video version, as always, is on YouTube.
There are helplines in the show notes if needed, and the research from today's episode are also found in the show notes.
Yeah, that's the end of our 24th episode.
Yes, we have one more episode of 2025.
Yeah.
And
we'll see you then.
Listen next week.